I want people to understand this ordeal. It's taken a toll on both of us.
Casey Anthony's parents respond after 15 years of allegations.
I've gotten blamed for something I didn't do, and it tears me up inside.
This can change our life. This is serious.
This is their final response.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.
For exclusive podcasts and more, sign up at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Kevin Flynn, and this is Crime Writers On, the true crime review podcast that digs into podcasts, pop culture, and this week we'll look at the 8-part Netflix documentary, The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann. We'll also look at the most heartwarming 5-minute podcast you'll ever listen to. Joining me to get that done and more is our captain of woke cynicism, the author behind the noir novels known as the City Trilogy, and our Patreon book club host, Toby Ball. Hello, Toby.
Kevin, how are you hanging in there on your own?
I'm hanging in pretty good. Rebecca and Laura are both off for school vacation. And Toby, we couldn't make this a complete sausage fest. So filling in, we have friend of the show and host of Extra Hot Great, again with this, and The Blotter presents Sarah D. Bunting. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. How are you guys?
We're doing good. I mean, at least I am.
Yeah, sorry to intrude on the sausage fest, but
no, this is much better.
It's a dirty job, but someone had to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So, like we were saying, both Rebecca and Laura have gone off to warmer places. Rebecca took the boys and left me behind. She didn't storm out of the house just in case, people start wondering about, what might have happened to her. She's okay. She didn't throw her curling iron at me or something going out the door. So I think she's coming back.
You?
She ghosted. Yeah, well, I guess you're ghosted if you just got your face buried in a margarita, and that's why you're not picking up your phone, right?
Checks out.
It looks like they've been having a good time based on the social media.
Yeah, Laura can't put her phone down, I think. Wherever she is, she's got good Wi-Fi. Now, Toby, you may not know this, but Rebecca actually got fired from a job because she was reading Sarah D. Bunting's stuff online too much.
Really?
Yeah, that's a true story. If she were here,
That is a true story?
That is a true
What
story.
job was this?
Sarah can tell a little bit about her bona fides, but she is one of the pioneers of sort of the fan-based entertainment critique. With a podcast, which I don't know if a website, which I don't know if I'm allowed to identify for legal reasons or not.
No, you can.
Was it Television Without Pity? Was this the?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am a co-founder of Television Without Pity. That is an unredacted, non-secret.
And so Rebecca had this job. It wasn't a high-level position. I think she might have just been at the time the receptionist or whatever, and she would be mostly on the website reading all of Sarah's reviews of the different shows because they have very similar senses of humor. And apparently that led to her dismissal.
I thought it was Tomato Nation that got her fired.
Oh, it could have been.
That's what she told me.
Oh.
But I was a multiple threat. I was a hyphenate in terms of my ability to get Rebecca busted at work, I guess.
Yeah, well, she's learned her
so what
lesson.
was Tomato Nation?
Tomato Nation is my blog, which still exists. It's like the last general blog on the internet, basically. And I would do like movie reviews. I used to do 21 Jump Street recaps. I had contests. I had an advice column. Little everything.
Now she writes about everything, including baseball, which is why I like to tweet at her when someone is about to hit for the cycle. They haven't hit for the cycle. They're just a double away, or most likely a triple away from hitting the cycle.
They're always a triple away. I finally figured out how to turn that setting off in the at-bat app. But it was just telling me like every possible thing. It's like, here's something stupid that just happened with the Mets. Like, guys, that's just a blizzard of notifications. Even in the off season, like someone stepped on his own hand trying to pick up a quarter and broke his fingers. Like, okay.
So it's going to be a different show today.
I guess so.
Okay, so we're going to start off with this. Kevin, could you read this? Yes, Kevin, I will. True Crime Update! It sounds so much better when Rebecca has me do it, I think. I feel a little silly yelling into the microphone
we probably should have. I probably could have like helped you out with that if we'd coordinated a little bit more.
Oh, okay. How about Toby? Can you do that? Could you say that?
Sure. Kevin, can you read this for me?
Oh, I thought you were going to do the yelling.
Oh, okay. I could do that.
You do that.
Go ahead.
All right. Toby, read this.
True crime update.
What?
That was terrible.
What?
Well,
what a well-oiled machine we've become.
Yeah. We have our roles for a reason.
Yeah. Adnan Syed's attorney, Justin Brown, says they will appeal their case to the Supreme Court of the United States. Earlier this month, the Maryland Court of Appeals said it would not reconsider its earlier ruling reinstating the conviction of Adnan Syed after two lower courts had overturned it. So I guess, guys, this decision to not to reconsider, it shouldn't be surprising to any of us. Am I right?
I don't feel like I'm nearly as well versed in this particular case as you guys are, but this did seem like the previous decision that was just affirmed. That was a surprise, but I think further disappointments are not.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess I wasn't really sure what the reason for hoping that it would be overturned would be.
No one really had a lot of hope, I believe, that this was going to get something accomplished, but you take that shot anyway. And the fact that now they're appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court again, which is such a long shot, it feels kind of pro forma to me. But then again, you have to go through the process because you don't know whether or not something is going to bounce your way. It's
frustrating. I can only imagine how it feels to, Rabia and Adnan's family, and from this remove, it feels as though, enough has been sort of called into question. I mean, we've talked about this before, but as it seems like door after door are being closed, and there's not a whole lot of doors left, if any.
Sarah, I know that you covered the case against Adnan Syed in The Blotter Presents. So
yes,
you're up to date on sort of like where the mainstream media and the mainstream audiences are on Adnan's story. Does the story have any more legs for those in the broader audience?
I don't know. I mean, I found the series very watchable, but also not necessarily, in the title, the title sort of implied that they would be investigating or maybe taking a devil's advocate position about the case against Adnan Syed, such as it was. That didn't end up being the case, and I was not disappointed by that, but I think at this point, maybe a series that, is not named that, but actually does that and takes a devil's advocate position that's like, what are we really talking about here when we talk about the case against him? I think that could be the source of more material, but who can say? The funny thing about this, about your comments about this case just now, it sort of put me in mind of what Toby and I were discussing in a recent Balls Deep Dive vis-a-vis Fatal Vision, that this kind of thing can take years to resolve, or people's positions can take a while to change and evolve in terms of trying to get cases brought back in front of the correct authorities. But what's the expression? Like, the justice system is not inclined to reverse itself. It's sort of built to prevent that.
Right.
So unless someone is given truth serum and is on national TV during that process, I have a feeling that this phase of the case is over. And I'm not sure how likely it is that new evidence is going to come from anywhere that the courts consider credible.
Yeah, and I think as far as the public is concerned, I think people have their minds made up right now if he's guilty or if he's innocent, and that there's little that's going to be done to change it. Even if the courts throw out the conviction and he's acquitted, I mean, I still think there's a chunk of people out there who will just always believe that he's guilty.
Sure.
I'm on the record thinking that he's not guilty, but I think that I mean, everything else today, people are entrenched in their camps, and I think that there's little that's going to be done in most places that will change people's minds. Although I do think that the miniseries on HBO did push people and challenge them probably more than they had been challenged previously.
I wonder how much that would play into, I think there's a reluctance to look for a pardon because I think that involves an admission of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder if the fact that everybody is so kind of in their camp and non-supporters would look at it as being just a very sort of transactional thing. It's like, all right, I'll say this so I don't spend the rest of my life in prison, and not like look at it as being a sudden reveal that he was guilty all along.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to get a certain outcome.
I feel like an Alford plea was suggested and was not something that Adnan was prepared to do. Am I just making that up, or?
Well, there was a plea offer. They didn't say it would have to be an Alford plea. That I think that they didn't get that far into it. The detail was that that he'd serve another 4 years, which was kind of an odd plea bargain, I guess. But that's what they thought about offering. So yeah, and I remember during the staircase. In the most recent episodes, that there was this, by Michael Peterson, this position that like I won't admit to anything, even though it's the pragmatic thing to do. You've served time. This would be time served, because some of it's pride, I guess. Some of it is I don't want people thinking that. I certainly don't want to confess to a crime that I didn't commit. But again, I just feel like, hey, Michael Peterson, people already believe that you did, or they believe that you didn't, and I honestly don't think anyone who thought you were innocent will suddenly think that you're guilty. They will see that this was the smart thing to do because it's more important that you get out of prison. And I think that people would say it for not. Yeah, it's also right, exactly. Yeah,
you never can tell. I am not an attorney.
Yeah,
I am not, as firmly grounded in this particular case as you lot, but you never know with this stuff.
Right. Well, we'll continue to follow this case because it's still looks like a couple of years left to it. All right, we're going to move on to something. Kevin, could you read this? Yes, Kevin, I'll read that. Toby Ball's Obscure Podcast Corner. Toby Ball sometimes likes to do things that he's not supposed to do, like listen to other podcasts. And although you don't like calling these obscure podcasts, you think these are up-and-coming podcasts?
Soon to be discovered.
Soon to be discovered. All right. Well, we'll have to go back and figure out a different thing to yell next time.
Podcasts on the verge.
On the verge.
Yes.
Edging podcasts. Of course, that might be something else. Okay, Toby, what do you have to share with the class?
Going off the rails early. What's that?
What do you have to share with the class?
This podcast was recommended by a listener through social media whose name is Rachel Grant, and it's called What Happened to Holly Bartlett, and it's from AMI, which is Accessible Media Incorporated out of Canada. And it's I guess a company that its mission is to make stories for, by, and about people with disabilities available. And so this is a podcast about a woman named Holly Bartlett, who was blind, lived in Halifax, and was found sort of on the edge of death at the bottom of a concrete abutment by this McKay Bridge in Halifax.
There was something red laying at the base of one of the massive concrete abutments on the frozen earth. He realized it was a person, a dead body, he thought. But Holly Bartlett's heart was still beating.
Holly Bartlett was found unconscious under the McKay Bridge after a night out with her friends.
She was laying underneath the bridge for 5 hours, breathing.
The 31-year-old's death was ruled an accident.
Drunk, blind girl, case closed.
Kind of from the start, like there's there's these questions about like, what was she doing there? She'd gone out and had some drinks with some friends from work. You know, she lived by herself in an apartment and was then found the next morning, and she was hypothermic, and she had some broken bones. I think had a head injury, and she died in the hospital. And so I think it's really interesting. I mean, this woman, I think she was in her early 30s, you know, and I think the police had a hard time grasping this, like lived an independent sort of normal life. I mean, she navigated through Halifax. There's a little anecdote about how the cab driver's given her a ride with somebody else, and she knows where they are throughout the cab ride. Just because she, you know, I guess she's memorized the order of the streets and stuff. So she's very independent. And part of, I think, what the police had a hard time with at the beginning is sort of understanding that, you know, a blind person could live that independently. And then there's these other questions about where her cane was, and in order to get to where her body was found, sort of the police thought that she had walked from her apartment and crawled through a hole in a fence and then climbed this concrete abutment for some reason and then fallen off of it while drunk. It just doesn't seem to make any sense. Is it a whodunit primarily, or is it more of a profile of this woman, Holly? It's more of, well, it's definitely a whodunit. Like, there's a profile. It starts off with a profile, and you know, you spend a lot of time talking to people who are friends of hers and stuff. I guess the first question is, what happened? Like, how did she end up down there? And then, you know, I think the idea is that, you know, her friends think there was, you know, clearly something happened. Like, she did not like crawl through this fence and do this herself. So there was some interaction with somebody, and I don't know if they will be able to find that person or whether they'll just kind of discover that, you know, what had happened that night, find out more about that. So it's not entirely clear to me where it's going, but it's more than just sort of a profile of her, although that profile I think is pretty interesting. They have a journalist involved whose name is Maggie Rohr. And she's really good. She's a good voice. So I think it's quite good. It's smart, and it does give you a little bit of insight into sort of the blind community and different ways in which people kind of arrange their lives so they can function very independently with that condition. And that's called, again, What Happened to Holly Bartlett? What Happened to Holly Bartlett? It's from AMI. And I recommend it. I think it's really good. And this has been Toby Bowles' Obscure Podcast Corner. Yeah, it doesn't get any better saying it when it's just me. It's a lonely. It's super sound. Lonely. It's funny when I do it and Rebecca laughs at it, but being here by myself, I realize how silly it is. I'm just assuming that you're just going to dub in a lot of Rebecca laughing. Might be able to pull some of that out. Hey, next up, there is a new podcast that has gone viral. It's by 5-year-old Azka Sharif. She is a Make-A-Wish kid from Illinois whose wish was to make a podcast. She got a hand from the team at WBEZ in Chicago and made her first mystery podcast, The Stealer of the Diamonds.
Once upon a time, there was a robber who sold diamonds and liked the color blue and red. The robber's name was Tessa.
Aska wants as many people to listen, so we're going to help her out by doing what we do, which is review mystery podcasts. So we hope Aska's will get to listen, but we're asking Mom and Dad to fast forward to this point and then immediately stop because of our potty mouths.
I think that's probably wise.
Yeah. Okay, so Toby, let me start with you. How are Aska's expressions when she's talking? Does she do a good job?
She actually does an awesome job, and having just spent quite a bit of time like reading stuff that I've written into a microphone, it's not easy, but yeah, she's awesome. She takes the story and makes it even more exciting with the way she tells it.
So you're saying a 5-year-old does it just as good as an adult does in you?
I would say better than the adult who is now talking.
Sarah, you've listened to a lot of things. What do you think about this young storyteller?
very promising young storyteller. This was a delight to listen to. Excellent use of detail.
The robber was stealing everything in town. She was even taking candy from babies. She stolen fragile jewelries and fragile birthday decorations, purses, wallets, and money from the bank.
It was a very girl-forward story in terms of the characters. I enjoyed that the lead cop was a woman-identified person, as well as our anti-hero, Tessa,
the villain.
But the phrase "fragile birthday decorations" just brought me such joy. This really was delightful, and the 5-minute length is really perfect.
It is.
It was like this little sorbet of crime storytelling.
Yes, the fragile birthday presents, the stealing of all of the chalkboards, and the worst part, taking candy from a baby. Now I have to ask, was that too obvious a choice for this storyteller, or was it a classic that was just made good all over again?
Yeah,
I'd go classic.
Classic. Yeah.
Usually, it's just like stealing candy from a baby. You don't often see a character actually doing it.
Yeah, that's brave to go there.
Bold move.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Bold
Exactly. Was this podcast sufficiently mysterious?
Yes.
It promises mystery. Yes.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
And I think there was Tessa went on a crime rampage.
She did.
Let's be serious.
Someone had to stop her.
And
Somebody had to
think
stop
some
her. It
mystery
wasn't clear.
remains.
The mystery remains about her motives.
I believe that Tessa's motivations, yes, remain obscure and perhaps can be followed up in a sequel.
And where did she get the mud on her shoes?
I don't know. That could be the starting point for the next one.
She probably stole that too.
Stolen mud.
There was, if it wasn't nailed down, Tessa was taking it. And sometimes, even when it was.
This is a true detail. The story is called The Stealer of the Diamonds. And I think it got that name because our storyteller has a problem saying the word thief. So the thief of the... So the stealer, as in one who steals. Again, I think it's a good use of some wordplay here. Very advanced for a kindergarten kid.
Yeah. No, the whole thing was awesome.
Yes, and I do believe that Tessa, there's probably a real-life Tessa in her kindergarten class that she doesn't like.
Oh, I was going to say,
or a sister
my
or
notes,
somebody. Yeah.
My notes read, I will bet you money that she has a sibling named or rhyming with Tessa. It doesn't seem, based on the story that we read in the Sun-Times, that is the case. Her actual sibling, who kind of helped put this together, seems like a pretty cool and supportive mentor. But yeah, I think you're right on that. Elsewhere at the Stevenson School lurks a Tessa or a Vanessa or someone that Aska is not a fan.
No, you write what you know about, though, right? So
yep.
That's good. That's good. All right, let's go around the horn and give thumbs up or thumbs down for The Stealer of the Diamonds. All right, Sarah D. Bunting, let's start with you.
Thumbs up, absolutely. And I look forward to future projects from this young podcaster.
Toby Ball, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. Big thumbs up. People should definitely take 5 minutes of their time and check it out. I think they'll like it a lot.
I'm also a thumbs up. My heart was warmed by this. It was also a very good story for 5 minutes from a 5-year-old. And I am looking forward to the follow-up to The Stealer of the Diamonds. I'm going to put a link to the show in our show notes and on the website. And if you get a chance, just take a minute and listen to it. She wants to get as many people to listen as possible. And I think we can do our best to get that number up and let the world know about the villainous Tessa who would go and steal candy from a baby. Moving on, 12 years after the case shocked 2 continents, Netflix is offering up the 8-part series, The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann. After the 3-year-old British girl vanished from her bedroom while on vacation in Portugal, the crime became an international media sensation, putting pressure on beleaguered local investigators.
Some individuals represented a significant person of interest.
Police say they are now treating a British man as a suspect.
They wanted me to confess. I actually felt I was being set up.
As blame shifted from local suspects to the parents themselves, what happened to Maddie is still unknown. The documentary takes an exhaustive look at what remains Europe's most controversial cold case. We will be discussing plot points for the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, so if you want to stay spoiler-free, jump to the time code in our notes. All right, well, in the beginning, there is a discussion about why certain missing persons cases capture headlines and why others don't. And Toby, I know that you have a theory about this because it's very much like your theory about why certain crimes get covered and why certain defendants get attention, right?
Yeah, well, I do. Although I don't really know how this fits into the theory in that it's just so extreme, you know, because I do think, you know, she's very telegenic. Her family's very telegenic. And they also, you know, they throw a lot of money at sort of media relations. But as to why, it's interesting to me that this one little girl got such international attention to the point where, you know, I mean, they show like clips from like the Today Show or whatever Robin Roberts is on.
Good Morning America.
Good Morning America. Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit at a loss beyond just sort of the general, you know, sort of attractiveness of the family and maybe a sense that they are, you know, typical, but in a slightly idealized way of sort of upper middle class people around the world.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you think, Sarah? Is it the mysteriousness of the circumstances? You know, vanished versus like being kidnapped straight up by a guy in a van?
Well, they have they have that one expert who I forget what his CV was and why he was a talking head interviewee, but he was.
Is this the guy from America?
Yes.
He was Center of Missing and Exploited Children. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. The Nick guy. That he talked at some length about, you know, what we see in the States is that it, you know, some of these crimes blow up and some of them don't. And it's always the circumstance. And I think he didn't come right out and say, you know, often it's a white teenage girl who gets sort of laser focused on versus victims of color or vanished of color. But what he was really focusing on, and this was something that came up repeatedly, was the similarity in like the number of aspects of the case that would suggest that it was going to blow up, like little specifics, and comparing it to Eitan Pates, who, I mean, whatever. Eitan Pates always comes up as a comparison with cases like this, but that you have, it wasn't just that he disappeared on his way to the bus. It was that he'd never taken the bus by himself before. And it was holiday weekend. So like that factored into it, that perhaps NYPD was a little slow to pick up the ball, and then they weren't able to talk to anyone at the school, and so on and so forth.
It's all those sort of details around it.
Yeah.
That play on the fears of the audience, right? And the general public. Like, oh, that could have been my kid.
And then this also has, like, this is an extremely young child. And a comparison that I kept thinking someone in 8 episodes was going to make, but they didn't, was JonBenet Ramsey.
Right.
Because you have a number of those factors also. Like, it's not just that it was Christmas night. It's not just that she was a, you know, little kid who was apparently taken out of her house. It's not just that there was this very long ransom note, which is like the longest ransom communication in the history of the FBI dealing with these cases. I can't believe I just pulled that fact out of my head with no prompting. Hi, I'm living my best life. And it's not just that she was a little pageant queen. It's all of those things. And I think particularly in these cases, when it's children, Eitan Pates being sort of sent off, even though it was like half a block, unattended in the New York of the late 70s. JonBenet being in pageants where she was like sexualized at the age of 5 or 6. Like, and then the McCanns, even though this was apparently de rigueur, leaving the kids alone, you know, while they had dinner. I guess this is just what was done. And you do have a couple of people saying that this was not unusual. that the opportunity to judge parents cannot be underestimated, in my opinion, when it comes to the popularity is sort of a skeezy way to put it, but I think that's actually appropriate. Like when it comes to people's prurient interest in a case like this, I think a big part of it for some people is the opportunity to judge parents, and usually mothers is what we're really saying.
Right.
Do you ever meet someone who seems kind of off? Whether it's a creepy neighbor or random phone number that keeps calling you, Truthfinder has you covered. You can search for people by name, address, phone number, email, and more. Truthfinder can be especially helpful for running confidential background checks on anyone you're planning to meet from online dating apps. Go to truthfinder.com/podcasts for a special offer. That's truthfinder.com/podcasts to access your special offer today.
I want people to understand this ordeal. It's taken a toll on both of us.
Casey Anthony's parents respond after 15 years of allegations.
I've gotten blamed for something I didn't do, and it tears me up inside.
This can change our life. This is serious.
This is their final response.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.
I think that this was a case that here in America that we knew of and knew some of the broad strokes, but unlike in Britain and in Portugal, where they really lived and breathed this, that we needed certainly episode 1 to, okay, I'm up to date. I got what's going on now, because there was quite a bit. And like the whole documentary, it does unfold slowly and deliberately. You know, it's 8 episodes. I think you probably could have gotten the same thing done in 5 or 6 with a different editor and with a different kind of pacing. But they really want to have sort of everything in there. There are lots of details and lots of little tangents, and they do try to explore all of them. So let's start with, the beginning. Do you guys think that by the time we hit episode 2 that American audiences are, up to speed on where we're going for the rest of this?
I would say so.
I didn't know much about it. I'd obviously heard of it, but I actually sort of was under the impression that more people thought that the parents were probably guilty than I think is the actuality.
Mm-hmm. Same.
So, but I didn't know anything about Pride of Luge or them having dinner every night while their kids slept alone in their apartment and stuff like that. I had no idea.
And may have been given the European equivalent of Benadryl.
Yeah.
Right. And then
which is like, back to, I'm a 70s kid. Like this was possibly something that my parents, like I had bourbon rubbed on my gums when I was teething. This is not something that happens anymore.
Oh, happens to me.
Same.
Yeah, it's teething, bourbon, everything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking of that little part. I was like, oh shit, Zanny the nanny, like strikes again.
Well, the McCanns were criticized for their aggressive media plan to keep the search going and focused on Manny. Not on Manny, on Maddie. In hindsight, it was the right thing to do, wasn't it?
I think so. I think if you have the means, this was another place actually where I found it odd that the Ramsey case was not invoked because of the heavy fire that the Ramseys took for that initial appearance after JonBenét's death, and that they were the focus of so much scrutiny that they had the means to deflect somewhat. It could be that they were mentioned, and after Burke Ramsey tried to sue the shit out of Dr. Phil at CBS, they were like, you know what? It's not that relevant. We'll just stick to talking about Eitan Pates.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought, I don't know, that seemed, given that she still has not been found.
Right, it's hard to say.
Yeah, of course that's what you would do if you're trying to find your child and you can do this. That's what you would do.
I think there was implied that at one point people started to think it was distasteful. And then when the allegations came that they were involved because of the cadaver dog hitting on the thing, then they were the pump was already primed for a backlash because it's like, oh, well, no wonder they were so excited to jaunt to Morocco on a private jet to talk about their missing daughter because they're behind it.
Yeah.
Well, what was your feeling, Kevin? Were you put off by that?
No, I mean, I was a little puzzled, looking back at this. And I think that, yeah, if you have the means and what you are desperate for is for those people that are in authority to help you, to keep the search on and have people out in the fields and everything and looking for her and questioning people and roadblocks and the whole thing. And it certainly came up many, many times that the parents, Jerry and Kate, felt like the disappointment with being named a suspect or, looking at a suspect meant that the attention was no longer on searching, which is what they wanted. And so if whatever they could do to keep people wanting to search, as opposed to we want the publicity so people remember who she is, or so that we can raise money for the foundation that will do X. It seemed like their goal has been, even though at a certain point a sense of futility may set in, that keep looking and not just like, keep figuratively looking. I mean, literally, like keep searching. Let's look around and literally find the rock that we've yet to turn over.
And I think the fact that she had that thing with her eye too.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I think, that's a piece of information that if I were a parent, I'd be like, everybody's got to know about this.
Right.
Because that's the giveaway.
This very unique, thing in her eye. But let me put it this way, and this is going to be pretty cruel. If you just stole a car and the entire continent was looking for that car, that very distinctive car, what would you do with that car?
Paint it.
No. Would you get rid of it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of brought up like, well, if we talk about the eye, that endangers her. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, she was endangered already.
Yeah, sure.
I think. I mean, at that point, you're hoping for a miracle. And that's sort of the most obvious way that people are going to be able to really tell that it's her, because otherwise it's a cute little 5-year-old blonde girl and there's literally millions of them.
So there's some real odd characters that we come across.
Yes.
Right up from the beginning, the original prime suspect is Robert Murat. And he sat for an interview in this. So we got to see a lot of contemporaneous videotape from back then and his thoughts on it now. What did you guys think of him and his story?
This is one of the pluses to the way this series was structured, which was to go pretty much in chronological order and sort of be following the stories wherever they led, like whatever side streets of the narrative they went down, versus sort of grouping everything in more like topic-based episodes, because he appears and he's seeming sort of sketchy, and it's not clear what position the show is really taking on his sketchiness. And then he's out of the narrative for a while, and then he comes back and he's definitely a prime suspect, and then he's not. And then maybe he is again. But at the same time, he's been very willing to work with the filmmakers. So that was, I think, a good choice, because his sort of continuing ebbing and flowing involvement, like there was tension there was some suspense there, but he's a strange biscuit, as we would have said back in the day.
Toby, you agree? I think that you found him kind of peculiar, right?
Yeah, he's kind of odd. Although the thing that's kind of troubling about it is that, like, the fact that you're odd makes people suspect you.
Right. Because that's literally what it was, right?
Yeah. No, it's kind of weird, and he's trying to help, so...
He's got a weird affect. Let's look at him.
Right. It was John Bonet again, where they flew some guy back from Singapore who was like a teacher who like wore really high-waisted pants. And it was basically like, oh, this guy is bizarre. Like, he probably did it. Like, if you're weird and you try and help, like, that sets you up as being a suspect is kind of is kind of a rough go, I think.
Well, but I
Richard
think that
Jewell,
the British
was another
press
guy.
in particular was primed to be suspicious of anyone who inserted themselves into the case because of the similar case that they
That one
referred
guy.
to.
Yeah.
Which, and you know,
The schoolmaster killing.
Yeah,
I don't
that-
remember the name, but a very similar case.
yeah, and the and he was like very helpful, and then was the guy. You know, John Douglas and Robert Ressler talk about this pretty frequently in their writing, that you are looking for someone who is inserting themselves into the case,
Sure,
in whatever way. I feel like maybe that's now more of a fictional trope, but there is some basis apparently. Like I'm not going to tell Robert Ressler that he's wrong, that the criminals do that. He knows what he's talking about.
There are some other interesting characters that we come across. And one of them, I really liked was the Portuguese female TV reporter.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it was very woke of them to interview her almost completely in the makeup room.
Yeah.
It's just like she did all this hardcore reporting, and it's like in the background, Maybelline, as far as the eye can see.
Oh, and when we're first introduced to her, before we even see her face, we see her hair being curled.
Yes. I'll give it to her, though. Her hair was great, though.
Yeah, it really was. She was great.
She was good. I think that, I enjoyed hearing more from her and the Portuguese press than I did from the British press at times, I got to admit.
Yeah, so the one guy with the flowing locks was kind of giving his
walking
his
around.
2 cents.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could think of was he's like better than the guy who was covering Amanda Knox. I was like, I'll give him that's if that's
the
well,
bar
that's the
was
bar
there.
That is the
clears it.
lowest
Yeah.
possible bar.
So, did you see the police sketch of their suspect, which was just an egg with hair? I mean, what the fuck, people?
Oh, God.
What did they think that was accomplishing?
They try and get another one, and then she also does another one. It's just like
They do a very
full
nice
body,
professional, yes, with no face.
but no face.
Maybe the guy didn't really have a face.
Which you think you'd be able to find a guy who looks like that pretty easily.
It was the Slender Man.
Just like
We've solved
there's
2
like, that's
cases.
our guy, no eyes, nose, or mouth. That's
Yeah.
our guy.
Yeah, the British press, and they certainly showed us a lot of headlines from the coverage. They really enjoyed sticking it to these Portuguese cops, and probably for good reason. I mean, a sketch that is essentially an egg with a parted hair that they were supposedly asking people, have you seen this egg? And, taking these long lunch breaks. We get to meet Giancarlo Amaral. He is my least favorite detective. Did he fuck up the case bad, or did he fuck up the case really bad?
Going back to Amanda Knox, he reminded me of that guy.
Yes.
Whatever the inspector was, who was also Monster of Florence.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I don't know.
He had a modus operandi for different theories for crimes. That it was always his thing is always kept the body in a freezer.
Yeah. And some of the thing is like, the odds are that it's the family or somebody close, and that's fine. And that's true, but that's not the be all end all of an investigation of an individual crime. And it's the same thing. It's like you get a theory, you're fairly, sure that you're right. So you work out how your theory can be like proven or at least explained in a way that makes any kind of sense. And in this case, that involved like stuffing her, dismembered body into a little freezer or something. Oh no, that was that other kid.
Well, that's the thing. He's another one who bricked.
It's just like
cases,
coming up with an explanation to fit your theory.
Yeah. That's the Joanna Cipriano case.
Yeah.
And right, this also, Amaral was under investigation for what happened in that case, which looks like he beat a false confession out of the mother. And there's that other cop. Oh, she has a mask. She fell down. It's like, come on, man. It was pretty brutal looking.
Yeah.
So we already don't like the look of this guy anyway. But can we blame him for not being able to solve this case? This just seems like this was something that was not solvable.
What?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Madeleine McCann's disappearance. It just seems. It isn't like, oh, well, you should have just looked at that. And in hindsight, we said, yeah, the case would have been solved if only that. I'm just wondering more about what could they have done. Maybe they could have acted more quickly to close off the town or something like that if she was being shuttled away. But as much as I hate this guy, I can't really say, yeah, it's definitely his fault they haven't closed the case.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he's a horse's ass. Like there was some other, they were doing one of those like soft focus reenactment scenes with chyrons over it. And he is saying in Portuguese, and the subtitles are telling us that he was telling the mother to calm down.
Uh-huh.
Which I just remember there was just something about the phrasing of that it's like,
yeah,
motherfucker, you calm down. Yes. Her toddler is missing. Don't waste time telling her to like, or no, he said that she was hysterical. Like, and the headline here is, what? Why are you wasting time telling her to calm down when you should be out looking for this child? But on the other hand, I do suspect that she was taken by strangers and that this was planned and that she is not alive and that she was not alive fairly soon after she was taken and that she was tiny. And if you want to steal a 3-year-old and conceal that fact, geometrically speaking, I think that's reasonably easy to do, especially in a holiday town where there's just a lot going on. And if they didn't catch the perpetrator or perpetrators in the act, I don't think anyone really had any shot, and especially not this guy, but even Poirot would have been like, well, we got here too late and there's nothing to be done, which is, I don't blame the parents for still hoping and being like, well, now she'd be such and so age and call our tip line if you see her, but I'm afraid that I don't think that is the upshot.
Now, the documentary seems to take a turn after the McCanns are cleared and the focus kind of shifts from Portugal to other parts of Europe. And we finally get to more of the story that a lot of us don't know, which is sort of these further investigations with the private eyes. You have that one Spanish private eye in his custom suit and his Ferrari driving around.
Yeah.
Julian Parabénez, I believe was his name. And then this rich benefactor, Brian Kennedy, comes in and infuses a lot of money in his couch. All right, so let's see. Toby, first of all, you tell me your take on Brian and Patrick Kennedy. What do you think of these guys?
Those guys are super sketchy. Like, those are the kind of people that scare the hell out of me, especially the son, who is just kind of like, you know, he and that Spanish detective go and they're like planning bugs and tracking devices on people's cars and questioning them. It's like, he's like, oh, did you feel bad about fucking with these people's lives when you don't actually have any authority? No, I don't feel bad about that. I feel bad for Maddie.
Yeah.
It's like,
well,
dude,
and then he was like, well, my dad told me to, so, and I was like, oh, cool reasoning for a grown up. Well done. Carry on.
Some of it I just thought was like kind of clearly bullshit. Like where he's like, well, we went to Morocco and we landed. And my dad said, well, go find somebody who speaks English and can drive us around. I'm like, come on, if you're a millionaire, why don't you just call somebody before you even go? So they're waiting for you at the airport. You don't go there and ask your 17-year-old son to walk around Morocco. Like, do you speak English? Do you speak English? Do you
I'm
have a
looking
car?
for a young blonde girl in the mountains.
Yeah. Just open your hotel window and yell her name out of it while smoking hashish. She'd probably get the same results.
Yeah. If it wasn't their own money, I'd be like, oh, this is the same private eye scam that they always run. Private eye says, oh, I think I heard that she was in Hawaii. Send me there.
I was totally going to say this reminds me of like short con guys who were inserted themselves into the Lindbergh case. And they're like, oh, yeah, I totally heard that she's working in Branson, Missouri. Like, okay. Good tip.
Yeah, these guys are super sketchy. I'm not really sure what the motivation is. And I did a little research on this guy just because I was like, has this guy been arrested for something or is he alleged? But he actually he owns like a serious rugby team in England. Like he's super rich. He's like a glazing mogul or something. It's like, no, this guy is like got a ton of dough.
A glazing mogul. Okay.
Didn't they say something about
stuff that it's like, I've invented this widget that keeps the medallion on the front of your car.
Yeah.
Now I own a whole country. All right.
Now I'm Batman.
So anyway, those guys freak me out more than anybody else in the entire thing. Cause it just seemed like the type of people who run gung ho with like complete confidence in their own judgment. Fucking, if you're on the wrong side of that, you could have some problems.
Right. Right.
Well, and at least in the States, there are some rules I don't know what they are or how effective they are, but they do ostensibly govern PIs and bounty hunters and the like. And then, well, let me ask you guys this, because there was that team of people, and then the benefactors hired this other complete Elizabeth Holmes of private investigations guy who turns out to not even be from the States. And then
that was weird. I would have liked to have heard a little more about that.
That could have been a whole series itself, though.
Exactly.
That it was like Theranos PI, and then, but then like a whole episode is devoted to the sort of fruitless shenanigans of both of these teams, and then cut back to Kennedy on his Edwardian red couch being like, well, and then we hired Batman. Like, okay, cool. Might as well try it. But that was a little like either that whole story, especially the second team, which was like, it was like a corporation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it wound up just being a complete shell game. But that needed to be its own documentary by Alex Gibney or its own series on Netflix. But because it wasn't, I kind of felt as though all of that should have been collapsed into a much shorter sequence.
I agree. I would have found that more interesting than learning more about how they got the key to the local church. I mean, I thought that, that there was a little juicier thing than that. And I also liked the Spanish PI.
But same.
But he was also a little weird, too. I mean, I think...
Oh, you think?
Yeah. It just really does attract a lot of colorful people because, it isn't like going to the supermarket. You don't have, quote-unquote, regular people involved in these kinds of industries. I mean, if you want to look at a weird private eye, look at Laura Bricker.
Oh, yeah.
She drives around, in her custom suit, convertible.
Cat on the dashboard.
Exactly.
I mean, that's living life from my perspective, Team Laura. But that one guy was talking about going undercover in these chat rooms.
Yeah.
These like pedophile chat rooms, and that it's just vile and it changes you and you're bathing in vodka and lye every night. Like, don't get me wrong. These sequences were not uninteresting. I thought they were actually kind of cool and processy, which is something that I always like. But then you get to the end of them and there's just really nothing to hold on to, except that there's another whole documentary about this second guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And possibly the Spanish guy. Like, I would watch that also. Not going to lie.
Well, the big voices that we are missing are the McCanns.
Right.
We do hear so much from them in the contemporaneous video. They gave so many interviews. There's so much coverage from 2007. I think we see every frame that's ever shot. But my question is, do we need them today for this documentary? Does it suffer without them?
I don't know. I mean, I think the kind of thing that I would like to hear them talk about, I don't think they probably would. So in that way, I don't imagine they would be, whether they would be open to talking about what their experience over, the course of however many years it's been, what that's been like, and sort of the way different things they've tried to do have worked or not worked and things like that. Because I think... And I don't blame them at all, but they've got like one message, right? Which is keep searching. So whether they would be able to get off that message to provide some kind of insight or other kinds of sort of observations or whatever, that would be interesting. I don't know. It didn't seem to me like that would be something they would do. And in that case, it doesn't seem like it's a big miss not having them there, but it's glaring. Like at the end, you're like, they never even talked to those guys. It's all third hand.
And we did hear so much from them in the time. There are a couple of things that, Sarah, I would have liked to have gotten their reflections on. In particular, what it was like for them to be accused of the crime when they're desperately trying to get the focus on the man hours and maybe a little more of their defense of their PR campaign. But I don't know. I think that we probably have at least enough of them so that they are a true presence and the emotional center of the documentary.
I think that's accurate. I think they put a statement out on the eve of the release of this series saying that they didn't participate because they did feel that the focus of this kind of not implied that there was no point searching anymore, but that it did take the focus off of searching, and that's why they wouldn't be participating and they wouldn't be discussing it any further. But like Toby, I would like to hear from them, but I think that it would be about things that they would not share. Specifically, recently, generally, as I'm interacting with true crime properties, I'm thinking about the ripple effects on family and friends and community of crimes. And I did keep thinking whenever they would show the McCanns like leaving that church or going into some buildings surrounded by press, like what is it like for the other kids in this house, in this family, that there is this huge hole around which they're all arrayed. And that's their lives. Like that can't be their lives every minute. I can't imagine that it is, but on the other hand, I can't imagine that it isn't.
I'm amazed that they're still together after something like this, because that really is the kind of thing that ends a marriage, because it's just so emotionally wrought. I am surprised and pleased that they seem to still have a healthy relationship and a nice family.
Yeah, I mean, I hope everyone's okay, and there's really no. I mean, what would they say? Like, yes, it's been difficult to carry on with the, sort of the not ghost of our sister, but I don't know. Like, I feel for the kids.
Yeah, I think the closest we get to that is the letter that Kate McCann sent to the parishioners in Praia de Deluge on the 10th anniversary, where she kind of comes up with a sort of a summary of where they are. I think that's as close as we're going to get to finding out how they are today.
Yeah, that's fair. But I didn't think the documentary overall suffered from that. I didn't think it was a case where the documentary took a position on their guilt or suspicions about their guilt or their behavior or anything like that, where they were not offered a defense, if that makes any sense. I think that they had the opportunity to participate, chose not to take it, and the documentary did a fine job of not sort of side-eyeing that decision. So, yeah. No, I didn't feel that it took away.
Well, let's do that thing that we do. Let's do our thumbs up, thumbs down reviews for The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Toby Ball, let's start with you. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I give it a thumbs up. I didn't know much about it. I think in large part, I thought it was interesting just for sort of what happened afterwards. And again, there's this weird cast. We didn't even talk about their PR people, who's another couple of kind of odd ducks.
The one who kept moving the microphone out of her face. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. And then she like knocks one out of somebody's hand. Oh, you can't do that. Again, you can always quibble. And I think we've talked a little bit about some of the, if you're going to do this for 8 hours, like there's an opportunity to look closely at certain things and not at other things. And like sometimes I don't think those decisions were made in the way that I would have wanted them to. But for the most part, I thought it was well made and thoughtful. And certainly for a case that's been exploited again and again, this didn't feel exploitive to me.
Sarah D. Bunting, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up. As Toby says, there's always quibbles, and I've aired them out, I think. I think this could have been a little leaner. Maybe one more pass through just to make sure that you actually need to be at 8 episodes instead of 6. But I think it does an excellent job giving you an overview of the actual case, like the terrain of the case. And then as the docuseries is continuing, looking at the issues around the case and at other parallel cases and at the cultural differences in tabloid and crime journalism overseas and. Yeah, I think it's good. It's well made. It's not like sticky the way some Oxygen media product can be. So yeah, no, it's good. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I am also a thumbs up. I did enjoy it. I agree with you, Sarah, that 8 episodes seemed pretty long. There's a lot to this case, and I think we saw just about all of it. It is also a good reflection, I think, and not so much on the crime involving Madeleine McCann, but on the sensation around Madeleine McCann that includes the media coverage and everything else with it. I think if you know a little bit, you know the name, but you don't really know what happened, like I think many of us do, then I think you'll find this a really interesting watch. Like I said, I'm thumbs up. But just remember, that's 8 episodes. It's about 8 hours. So when you sit down to watch this, settle in because it's going to be a long time.
Do you ever meet someone who seems kind of off? Whether it's a creepy neighbor or random phone number that keeps calling you, Truthfinder has you covered. You can search for people by name, address, phone number, email, and more. Truthfinder can be especially helpful for running confidential background checks on anyone you're planning to meet from online dating apps. Go to truthfinder.com/podcasts for a special offer. That's truthfinder.com/podcasts to access your special offer today.
I never did anything to harm my daughter or my granddaughter.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's Parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.
All right, now it's time for Rebecca's favorite part of the podcast, little something she likes to call the crime of the week. When a fight broke out in front of an Orlando nightclub, who was the first to try to break it up? A guy in an Easter bunny costume. Break it up is a generous description, though. Actually, the bunny hopped in. He hopped in. One more time, he hopped in and was throwing haymakers. If you think a 6-foot-tall fuzzy bunny going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 on a guy isn't funny, you're dead wrong. The hair-raising incident was caught on camera, naturally.
Kevin.
I know. And then after the punching, you see the bunny dance around and shuffle his feet like a boxer.
Yeah, does the alley shuffle.
Yeah, and to quote Bambi, that's why they call him Thumper. And because it's America, we can't have one goddamn happy ending, as we find out now that the guy in the bunny suit is wanted in New Jersey for 2 armed robberies and is a person of interest in a carjacking. Silly rabbit. Panel. Jesus. Santa brings coal to bad kids. So what do you think?
It seemed like such a good idea at the time.
It did, didn't it? Yeah. Santa brings coal to bad kids. What do you think the bunny's going to leave in this guy's basket? Toby Ball, start with you.
This guy's basket?
Yeah.
Jesus, I don't know. A peep with a switchblade?
Sarah, what do you think?
I am torn in my responses. My first instinct is to say a can of whoop ass.
Yes.
But I think it also might be the sequel to The Stealer of Diamonds.
Oh.
Ooh, that would be
The Bunny Puncher. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, it stole all the Easter candy. Yeah, I think the guy was bad, so he's going to get a Cadbury snot egg, which is pretty much a Cadbury cream egg. There we go. Anybody have a cat of the week? No? Good. We're moving on. Sarah D. Bunting, thank you very much for filling in for Laura Bricker and Rebecca Lavoie. You had to fill in 2 big sets of shoes, and you did great.
I thank you so much for saying that. I really feel that I barely even filled up a toe, but I tried.
Oh, don't worry. You'll hear about it later if you did.
Yeah, I bet.
So, Sarah, where can our listeners follow you on the socials?
On the socials, you can find me talking about true crime at Blotter Presents, and then talking about everything else, including stupid things that local politicians say and stupid things the Mets do, at Tomato Nation, and that's both on Twitter.
And you've got you got several great podcasts, but if you like true crime and you want to get more in discussions, I'd recommend the Blotter Presents. Both Toby and I have been guests on, and we expect that we will have to repay this debt by coming on again.
Oh, I hope you shall. Rebecca has also been a guest. Only Lara is still holding out on me, so she and her cats have got a
That's right.
It's a trade within the division. It'll be great.
Toby Ball, if people want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
At TobyBallNH on the Twitters.
And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can find me at Kevin P. Flynn. You can also follow the show at Crime Writers On, and I encourage you to join the amazing community in our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. We also have a regular old Facebook page. Support the show at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media, and you'll get the Crime Writers On After Show, Married with Podcast, the Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, and Laura Bricker's True Crime Fitness Fun Group, and the Leave It to Bricker podcast. Our theme song was performed by the New York Ska Jazz Ensemble and used with permission. This show was recorded in the Yoga Loft above the Bodega in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the closet in our basement where the stealer of diamonds hides her stolen fragile birthday decorations and all the chalkboards from the school. On behalf of the Crime Writers, thanks for listening. We will catch you later.
Later.
Good job. Toby.
Hey,
how did your Facebook Live go?
It went swimmingly.
Excellent. Let me bring in...
Laura, for some reason, was watching.
She can't take a week off.
The beach. Yeah, exactly.
At night. All right.
Partners in Crime Media.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.